John chapter 1, we read, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and apart from him nothing came into being that is come into being. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness could not overpower it. There was the true light, which coming into the world enlightens every man. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and those who were his own didn't recognize him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, even to those who believed in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. And we saw his glory as of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth." In the Gospel of John, light is an overall theme. In chapter 3, his famous encounter with Nicodemus was at night. Jesus described those who live in truth as the ones who have come into the light. In chapter 8, while he's teaching in the temple, Jesus calls himself the light of the world. And then in chapter 9, he heals a blind man by removing his darkness and opening his eyes to the light. In chapter 11, just before raising Lazarus from the death and darkness of his tomb, Jesus commands his disciples to walk in the light of day and to be careful not to stumble in the night. In chapter 12, in Jerusalem, nearing his death, he challenges his followers to believe in the light so that their lives might be determined by the light. Throughout John's gospel, we see that in darkness, the true light shines. Hardships actually give us an unexpected chance to adjust our perception and recognize the hope that has been with us all along. God doesn't want us to suffer, but in the darkness of our suffering, God's light still shines, unhindered, unshadows, unchanging, and unwavering. Jesus wasn't born into a world of holiday cheer and festive displays and widespread goodwill. He entered the world through crowded streets, a paranoid, murderous king, and hopelessly oppressed citizens. Jesus entered the world as it is, with all its darkness and ugliness and gloom. Jesus understood the sting of a loved one's death. He understood the heartbreak of a friend's betrayal. He understood physical fatigue. And he understood vengeful backlash just from telling the truth. God came here to be with you wherever you are, not in spite of your suffering, but to share in your suffering, not in spite of your darkness, but because of it. We've all walked in darkness, and we've all seen the great light, and it's still here. So what kind of light is the light of the world? It's not the light of anger and revenge on those who've hurt us. That creates shadows of hollow victories. Not the light of unfulfilled homes and dashed dreams that create shadows of remorse and bitterness. Not the light of fabricated cheer and festive escapism. That creates shadows of fading memories and short-term fulfillment. The light is the light of Emmanuel, the light of God with us, who fills us with the eternal hope of our security in the kingdom of heaven, who lifts up a vision of peace. The light that says in Psalm 46 to be still and know that I am God. John 1:18 says that no one has ever seen God. God, the only Son, who is at the Father's side, has actually made God known. And one of the benefits of this incarnation is that Jesus reveals the greatness, the wonder, and the glory of God in a way that we can understand. And that's also our invitation. While we await the already, the presence of Christ is here among us. So as we celebrate this fourth week of Advent, for those of us who live under the cover of darkness, like Nicodemus, even the darkness of shame and sin, guilt and addiction, we can reflect the light of forgiveness and grace and acceptance. And for those who are blinded by the despair and hopelessness like the blind man, we can offer a light of hope and courage. And for those who live in the shadow of death, like Mary and Martha grieving their brother Lazarus' death, we can embody a light of comfort and promise of an eternal future.